In the dim glow of the movie theater, we all cheered as Bruce Willis emerged atop Nakatomi Plaza, his white tank top soaked in sweat, his voice calm yet determined as he delivered one of cinema's most iconic catchphrases. We marveled at his smirk, that signature blend of confidence and wry humor that made us believe nothing could stand in his way. For decades, he inhabited characters who charged headfirst into danger, trading bullets and quips as effortlessly as breathing. He sprinted up stairwells, defused bombs, rescued hostages, and challenged fate itself, all while wearing a grin that invited us to join him in defying impossible odds. And yet, somewhere beyond those heroic frames, the real Bruce Willis has been facing an adversary more insidious and unrelenting than any cinematic villain. Today, we peel back the curtain on the sad reason he's saying goodbye, an emotional reality that contrasts sharply with the fearless warrior we've grown up admiring. If you grew up in the 90s or early 2000s, chances are you anchored your weekend nights around Bruce's blockbuster hits. Die Hard delivered pulse-pounding thrills, Pulp Fiction showcased his understated cool, The Sixth Sense redefined suspense. We didn't just watch him, we rooted for him, invested in his triumphs and mourned his setbacks. He became more than an actor, he was a cultural phenomenon, a living emblem of resilience and hope. We downloaded Yippee-Ki-Yay onto our screensavers and replayed his explosions in slow motion, believing that the man behind the roles possessed a secret immunity to pressure, pain, and fear. But real life refuses to play by Hollywood rules, and the towering legend of Bruce Willis has been dimmed by an illness that spares no hero, no matter how fearless he may seem. In March of 2022, Bruce's family dropped a bombshell that shattered the illusions we held dear. He had been diagnosed with aphasia, a neurological condition that gradually robs a person of the ability to communicate. At first it was small things, a misplaced word here, an awkward pause there, failures so subtle you might chalk them up to fatigue or distraction. But for Bruce, whose voice was once his greatest weapon, every hesitation carried devastating weight. He knew the words he wanted to say, they floated inside his mind inaccessible and mocking. The cameras continued to roll, often unaware of the struggle, capturing an actor who could no longer deliver lines with the clarity audiences expected. Behind the scenes, crew members exchanged worried glances as they propped up their hero, careful not to let him falter in public. By February 2023, the situation had taken an even darker turn. The Willis family revealed that aphasia was only the beginning. Bruce was battling frontotemporal dementia, FTD, a progressive disease that erodes personality, judgment, and memory. There is no cure, no proven way to halt its advance. Every day, the affliction chips away at a person's sense of self, dismantling the very foundation of identity. For someone whose career was built on mastery of expression, every glance, every inflection, every moment of quiet intensity, this diagnosis was a cruel blow. Fans wondered how a man who once controlled every frame could lose control over the simplest faculties of speech and motion. We asked ourselves whether the invincible action hero we admired on screen was slipping away in silence. Imagine the impact of this revelation not only on Bruce, but on those closest to him. His wife, Emma Heming Willis, spoke of the terror she felt witnessing subtle shifts in her husband's demeanor, moments where his signature smirk gave way to confusion, where his confident posture collapsed under the weight of uncertainty. Their daughters, barely into their teens, have faced the unimaginable pain of seeing their father fade in front of them, unable to recognize birthdays, school recitals, or ordinary conversations. Bruce's ex-wife, Demi Moore, stepped forward to share her own heartbreak, painting a picture of a man who needs love now more than ever, yet cannot ask for comfort in words. Through social media posts and interviews, she rallied fans to embrace compassion over speculation. Behind the glossy headlines and swirling rumors lies a family united in grief and determination, striving to give Bruce dignity and warmth in the darkest chapters of his life. But the story takes a grimmer turn when we look behind the scenes of Bruce's final film roles. Between 2018 and 2022, he starred in over 20 productions, many of them direct-to-video projects driven not by artistry but by the simple promise of his star power. Reports surfaced of early call sheets, listing him for dialogue-heavy scenes, only for directors and stunt coordinators to scramble and rewrite on the fly when he struggled to recall lines or coordinate movements. On the set of Hard Kill, crew members recalled drilling cast and extras on gun safety because Bruce fired prop weapons at the wrong cue, not once, but repeatedly. During the filming of Midnight in the Switchgrass, a stunt coordinator and the director resorted to feeding Bruce his lines through an earpiece, hoping his ear would act as a lifeline when his mind faltered. These testimonies, whispered across various sets, painted a portrait of a man who had become a puppet in his own legacy, performing stunts and sequences that demanded physical and mental precision he could no longer muster. While the cameras rolled and the box office reports tallied his name among the credits, a debate simmered within Hollywood's corridors. Some producers argued that Bruce's presence, however compromised by illness, still pulled in guaranteed millions. Others saw it as exploitation, condemning the relentless casting of a man clearly past his prime and grappling with a debilitating disease. Friends and colleagues, who cherished him, voiced private frustrations, lamenting that affection alone was not enough to protect him from a system hungry for profit. The contrast has never been starker: the Bruce Willis of legend, a daring action star, versus the Bruce struggling to string together a sentence or recall his own motivation for a scene. It's a confrontation between our ideals of heroism and the unyielding reality of human vulnerability. As the controversy swirled, Emma Hemming Willis faced an impossible choice: protect her husband as he faded away, or shield their daughters from the unbearable pain of watching their father slip further into silence. In August 2025, she revealed that Bruce had moved into a second property staffed by full-time caregivers, a decision that ignited a firestorm of online criticism. Some fans accused her of abandonment. Others defended her unwavering love under harrowing circumstances. But what really motivated Emma's heart-wrenching judgment call? Behind every headline lies a mother's instinct to preserve a childhood. Mabel and Evelyn, barely teenagers, had begun to ask questions their father could no longer answer. Birthdays passed without the familiar roar of "Happy Birthday, Daddy," recited on cue. School concerto performances went uncelebrated, their notes echoing in empty rooms. Emma realized she could not build a life around hospital beds and emergency calls without stealing precious moments from her girls. The new home was designed for mobility aids and soft lighting, for nurses who understood his triggers and therapists who knew his routines. It was a sanctuary for Bruce, but it also offered a refuge for his daughters, where they could laugh, learn homework tricks, and live fragments of a normal adolescence, even if Dad couldn't read the words on the blackboard. Yet the digital court of public opinion refused nuance. Memes circulated of Bruce behind gated windows, cartoons depicted him in isolation, and hashtags like #AbandonedWillis trended for days. Emma, understandably silent at first, finally broke her silence. "We're not giving up, we're adapting." In interviews, she spoke of her role not as a distant spouse but as a care partner, navigating medical appointments, doctor's notes, and emotional breakdowns at 3 in the morning. She revealed how she walked him through memory exercises, held his hand through physical therapy sessions, and whispered stories of their early days, hoping that flickers of recognition might light up his eyes, even if words stayed locked behind damaged pathways. Meanwhile, Bruce's oldest daughters, Tula, Scout, and Rumor, stood at a crossroads of guilt and grief. Growing up in different households had already tested their bonds. Now watching a father metamorphose into a stranger deepened the ache. Tula admitted on national TV that she once thought he didn't love her anymore when he stopped responding to her calls and hugs. But when she learned of his disease, regret washed over her like a tidal wave. She threw herself into advocacy, speaking openly about the dangers of ignoring early dementia signs. Each family gathering became a strategic blend of sentimental photographs and medical check-ins, laced with laughter that threatened to break into tears at any moment. Even Demi Moore, Bruce's ex-wife and mother to Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, could not stand aside. She organized a surprise 70th birthday party that doubled as a fundraiser for the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration. In the flicker of candlelight, the three-generation family stood united, celebrating a man who had given them so much, even as he struggled to remember his own name. Cameras flashed, but this time for compassion, not clickbait. The fundraiser raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single evening, yet the greater payoff was in the way the world watched, silently, as empathy spread. Hollywood insiders, meanwhile, began to question the morality of continuing to feature Bruce on screens. Directors like Mike Burns and Jesse V. Johnson stepped away from projects, admitting in private that they had felt a growing unease every time they read his name on a call sheet. Producer roundtables discussed new industry guidelines, mandatory health screenings for aging stars, limits on speaking roles for those with evident cognitive decline, and the appointment of on-set welfare officers. A movement was born to protect performers from becoming living billboards, whose names alone drive profit, regardless of cost to health or dignity. Amid this reckoning, researchers at the University of Sheffield published a breakthrough study in Science Translational Medicine. Their experimental nasal spray showed promise in halting early stages of FTD by delivering targeted antibodies past the blood-brain barrier. While still years away from human trials, the study ignited hope among families facing similar battles. Mabel and Evelyn, now aware that they carry a potential genetic risk, volunteered to participate in long-term observational studies. Their decision underscored a powerful lesson: knowledge can be both a burden and a shield. And Bruce himself? In rare moments of lucidity, often unannounced, a flash of clarity in the fog, he would smile at his family, watching home movies of die-hard bloopers, or listening to Pulp Fiction dialogue. He might not deliver the lines, but the glint in his eye spoke volumes. Those fleeting fragments of self reminded everyone why they fought so hard, why they refused to let protocols and profit overshadow humanity. It was as though the camera had briefly turned inward, offering a miracle glimpse of the hero beyond the hero. In the grand tapestry of his life, this chapter may be the most poignant of all. It forces us to wrestle with uncomfortable truths, that no icon is immune, that love sometimes demands sacrifice rather than simple proximity, and that the legacy we leave should be defined not by box office returns, but by acts of compassion when adversity strikes. Emma's decision, the daughter's advocacy, the ex-wife's rallying call, and the researcher's nasal spray together create a mosaic of resilience amid despair. Behind the closed doors of countless production studios, a troubling pattern emerged around Bruce's final film projects. On the set of Survivor Redemption, crew members recall a particularly harrowing afternoon when Bruce attempted a high-dive stunt into a water tank. Though rehearsals had gone smoothly, on the day of filming he froze atop the platform, muscles locked by fear and confusion. Monitors tracking his vitals signaled high stress, prompting the stunt coordinators to step in and quietly replace him with a double. The footage was edited so skillfully that viewers never suspected their hero had been sidelined. It was a protective measure, yet also a painful admission. The man who once leapt through windows and outran explosions was no longer fully present. Similar stories echoed from other productions. During the making of Last Stand Protocol, Bruce was scheduled to deliver a rapid-fire monologue, his trademark grit shining through every line. Instead, he stumbled over words, his brow furrowed as if wrestling invisible adversaries. Script supervisors whispered among themselves, scrambling to supply cue cards and rework scenes on the fly. One assistant director recalled asking, "Are you okay, Bruce?" only to be met with a blank stare, as though the man they revered had slipped behind an impenetrable wall. Cameras continued to roll, dutifully capturing footage that would later be assembled into a semblance of coherence. These incidents sparked a quiet debate among producers and financiers. For many, Bruce's name still guaranteed overseas distribution deals and streaming deals that could fund entire production budgets. But for others, directors like Mike Burns, stunt veterans like Jesse V. Johnson, and on-set welfare officers, the moment had passed when affection alone could be a safeguard. If cameras could lie, if editing could mask every falter, where did responsibility truly lie? Was it enough to quietly shuffle Bruce from one action beat to another, hoping no one noticed? Or did every new role represent another chapter in a narrative of exploitation? In industry roundtables, voices rose in cautious outrage. Proposals surfaced for mandatory cognitive screenings for actors over a certain age, protocols to verify that every featured performer understood scripts and stunts before stepping in front of cameras. Unions weighed in, advocating on-set care partners whose sole job would be monitoring health cues and flagging concerns before a shoot day began. International guild offices began drafting guidelines that would treat cognitive health on par with physical safety. No more silent confessions whispered into lobby corridors. Amid this whirlwind, Bruce's own moments of clarity shone like beacons. During a rare family screening of an early Die Hard blooper reel, he laughed, a deep, genuine laugh that resonated through the screening room. His eyes, once dimmed by confusion, brightened at the sight of his younger self racing around Nakatomi Plaza. Emma leaned in, gently explaining each clip, how his face lit up at the director's praise, how he improvised key moments that would become cinematic legend. For a brief time, the man who struggled to form sentences rediscovered fragments of his past triumphs. In that shared laughter, family members found solace, proof that beneath the fog of FTD the spirit they loved remained. Yet those flickers of recognition were fleeting. The next day, Bruce might stand on a set unable to recall why he was there. He would scan line by line through a 200-page script, eyes glazed, searching for purpose. On the set of Steel Horizon, director Randall Emmett attempted to coax him by pantomiming a simple action sequence, hoping that muscle memory might ignite a spark of comprehension. Instead, Bruce stared back, unmoored by the absence of verbal instruction. Emmett later admitted that he wept in private, torn between grief and anger that the industry had allowed this to continue so long. Juxtapose this with the Bruce who once scaled Mount Kai in Tears of the Sun, who held enemy fire with unwavering calm. That Bruce made us believe in heroes. This Bruce showed us our shared frailty. He became, unwittingly, a symbol of how even the mightiest can fall prey to conditions beyond control. If Hollywood's greatest daredevil could become a reliant patient, then none of us were guaranteed immunity. As news of the Sheffield nasal spray breakthrough reached the family, hope flickered once more. Researchers described how targeted antibodies could slow FTD's progression by neutralizing toxic proteins around nerve cells. It would be years before human trials began, but for Emma and Bruce's daughters it represented a promise. They volunteered for observational studies, determined that their sacrifice might spare future generations from such a slow, agonizing fade. Their choice echoed Bruce's own off-screen heroics, striving against all odds to protect those he loved. Amid this convergence of grief, hope, and industry reform, fans around the world faced a reckoning. No longer could we passively consume celebrity triumphs, ignoring the human cost behind glossy headlines. Bruce's struggle demanded that we view our icons with compassion, that we advocate for comprehensive support when illness strikes. It reminded us that heroism is not measured in explosive set pieces, but in enduring love when strength ebbs away. Now, as audiences reflect on the legacy of a man who once shrugged off danger with a smirk, we must confront the vulnerability that frames his final act. Bruce Willis did not write his own ending, illness did, but we can shape the story that follows, one where compassion triumphs over spectacle, where health and dignity matter more than box office receipts. In honoring his career, let us also champion the cause he inspires, demanding ethical safeguards for performers, supporting research into devastating diseases, and preserving the humanity behind every screen icon. And so the curtain falls on a career defined by defiance, courage, and unforgettable bravado. In theaters and on living room couches around the world, fans invested in Bruce Willis not merely for the explosions or the edge-of-your-seat chases, but for the spark in his eye, the feeling that he could outrun any threat. We lived vicariously through his grit, convinced that if anyone could stand against fate it was Bruce. Now though, the tables have turned in a way no screenplay could predict. Frontotemporal dementia has cast a shadow darker than any villain he ever faced, stripping away the ability to speak a full sentence, to navigate simple movements, and ultimately to know himself. For many of us the revelation triggered a profound reckoning. How do you mourn a hero who's still breathing? We passed around tributes, and shared clips of his greatest hits, but in the quiet moments, a deeper grief took hold. It's the helpless sorrow of watching life's final act unfold without resolution, of knowing there will be no climactic victory or stirring monologue to banish the darkness. Instead, the latest scene is unscripted, raw, and heartbreakingly real.